Hi, Weiwei. This is Jian in Toronto. Hello.
Hello, this
Thank,
is Weiwei.
thank you so much for doing this.
Well, you're welcome.
Weiwei, it's good to speak to you again. The last time we spoke, your movements were restricted. You were still apparently under some kind of investigation by Chinese authorities. What is your situation now?
Now they kind of leave me alone, but they never return my passport to me, and they try not to talk to me. Even I make a phone call or they never answer my phone call.
Do you still have to pretty much stay at home, or are you free to travel within Beijing?
I I I I can travel outside Beijing now, but of course there's always secret police following in the airport or in the hotel.
When we talked last year, you described feeling angry and frustrated about your situation. You said things felt very dark. Do you still feel that way?
I think as toward my self personally, it's getting more freedom, but the whole situation in China is still very messy and very confused.
And how would you describe your daily life? What's a day like for you now?
Every morning I wake up about 6 or 7 o'clock. I would immediately get on internet, which I cannot use China domestic internet, so I have to so-called to climb over the Great Firewall and get on Twitter, so I can see news or to talk to Twitter fans to discuss current situation. Then by 9 o'clock, my colleague would come. We would discuss about art shows or publication or documentary films. We are trying to make and for many years. And in the afternoon, to I would go to park with my son and spend time with him. By the evening, I would come back to the office and get on internet again. That's my everyday schedule.
In order to express yourself, you need a reason, and the reason is to express yourself.
Yes, it became more true after I read that. That was 2005. I was still very frustrated about how to use the new technology, uh, internet, to integrate as important tool for artistic expression. And also the kind of involvement bring me into more social uh, concerns.
Well, I'm very happy to pleased to hear that you're okay. You're speaking to us. You spoke to us at some risk last year. Let's jump into talking about your artwork. It seems like despite the challenges of your situation, you're still very active creatively. You made quite a stir with your show at the Venice Biennale this year. The series of dioramas you made depicting scenes from the 81 days you spent in a Chinese prison in 2011. Wait, what were you trying to express about your experience in prison with that work?
Um, After I was released, so many people have a curiosity about my condition during that kind of detention, and it's very hard to explain. So I looked through in the history in China's history, very a few accountable images or writings about the details of the condition. So I also it's very difficult for me to explain that kind of experience. As an artist, I automatically think to make a, a sculpture to really trying to make as precise as possible for the memory, and for people who has curiosity to see the condition. I think that's worth to try, but it's very difficult because the condition of my release is clearly states I can never tell anybody about the secret detention, and also to make a large sculpture like that, it takes a lot of carefulness. We have to do it secretly, and but after almost 2 years of struggle, we made this happen.
How much is creating that kind of artwork about explaining what you went through, as you've just explained, and how much of it is about coping with the memories that may haunt you, some sort of therapeutic or cathartic kind of release?
I think it works on both ways. First, you have to precisely and to examine the condition, or to memorize, to record all the details, and which I spent 81 days just trying to remember and measure everything. And also, it takes a long time for anybody has been mistreated or has been put in a very difficult situation through a state judicial system, and to really overcome and to have this kind of therapy to readjust their understanding and their view about the world, and which is very difficult. I see many people after their release, they can never really come back to normal life again, because this is just too dramatic experience, which has nothing related to ordinary life or common sense or logical judgment or sense of right or wrong.
And you,
So
do you have
for
any sense of a normal life now?
I have much better. It take me already over 2 years to hanging in the park, to see the nature and to find, those insects in the grass with my son, and trying to enjoy all those moments. And it's hard job.
Do you still feel haunted by moments of that 81 days in prison?
Not as much when I was just released. I would always have nightmares. I become more easy to get tempered or angry, and now I become a bit better.
Well, I guess I don't want to say it's a benefit, but one of the upshots is that you create very powerful artwork and out of situations like this, and some of that powerful artwork is now on display in Canada. Weiwei, this retrospective, according to what, marks the first time North American audiences have had a chance to see a large collection of your work in a single show. It's also a significant honor in the art world. What does getting this kind of recognition in North America mean to you?
I think as an artist, this is very grateful to see your work has been well received by the audience, and I am very happy to know my work now receive great enthusiastic from the Canadian audience, and I have to say thanks to them, and also thanks to the museum, the organizer, and director. They have the courage and made those efforts.
What do you mean by they have the courage?
Well, we all see in the Western yeah, world or Europe or United States, and they have a more relationship with the Chinese government today than ever, because the economy, because of the business.
Yes.
I think many culture exchanges has been shattered by those those essential struggles, and in many areas people tend not to mention to the supporting for those very basic values such as human rights, freedom of speech. So I think every effort made toward that direction, I think is very valuable.
Are you suggesting that in some way, Weiwei, that just presenting your artwork, the exhibition, is a political act of sorts?
I wouldn't say it's a political act, but I would say certainly it it does have a support for the justice anywhere. Is to support the justice and everywhere. I think that's from Martin Luther King's original thinking, and I think human today are so connected, and all those values are shared more than ever. So, this is a total struggle.
It's interesting to have this exhibition, which is it's quite stunning, and it's interesting to have it in North America because in a way, it's a return to a different home of yours. And I want to ask you about some of the work that's included in this retrospective called "According to What." There are some photographs. Speaking of a second home of yours, from the time you spent in New York City in the 1980s. Weiwei, how important was that time in your life in developing your art and philosophy?
The time I spent in New York is, I think, it's very important in my life. That was the time I just survived with my family through the Cultural Revolution, and that time China is like Northern Korea today. So I managed to escape and to spend 12 years in quite a free style, to stay and to survive in this capital of the, one of the capitals of Western culture. And certainly, the kind of values or kind of struggle or argument, and all those around relate to culture, politics, affect my view. I think I'm very much influenced by this period of experience.
Of course, you returned to China, and a lot of your work reflects on China. And this show, this exhibition, According to What, includes some of your best known works, including, on the one hand, a series of photos of you smashing Han Dynasty vases. On the other, for example, large sculptures that use traditional Chinese woodworking techniques. Do you see your work as breaking with Chinese tradition or continuing it?
I think my work are using Chinese culture, sometimes the political situation or current conditions as a ready-made, which give me a chance to rethink my position and to make some kind of announcement or some kind of new expression out of it, and which dealings where we come from and how what kind of frustration we have today.
And the show also includes photos from your series Study in Perspective. These are quite provocative. These photos show a close-up of your middle finger in the foreground, effectively, giving the finger to famous institutions and scenes of power like the White House, the Eiffel Tower, Tiananmen Square. Wait, how do you sum up the message of that series? Do you mean it as a rejection of all authority, all icons?
No, I wouldn't say that. We all have to live under some kind of order or some kind of system, and but nevertheless, the personal intention or the attitude towards the power, such as political and economical or culture power structures, which it shows my at least shows my concerns or my attention. I have to as an individual, especially as an artist, as an individual, I always have to think my positions and to make a judgment and to questioning the authority. And at the same time, of course, we questioning our life or our existence. We always part of this kind of argument.
It's interesting because it's an angry gesture to give something the finger, the White House. But in a way, it also strikes me as quite impotent. I mean, it doesn't. It's sort of passive in the sense that it's not going to actually change anything. Can you reflect on that?
I think that shows an individual position toward any authority. As an individual, of course, it's not always just angry, but sometimes it's just a humor or a joke or to dismiss certain kind of tension by doing that. I think it's only a gesture. It's nothing so important. It's just like anybody would take a photo in front of a building to use as a memory.
Right, I got you. But just with the middle finger raised. This.
Yeah, it's just it's only my left hand. It's not. I wouldn't take my head. I think that's boring. But my left hand is more tolerable.
Well, perhaps, certainly in a more serious vein, this show also includes the field of rebar you salvaged from buildings destroyed in the Sichuan earthquake in 2008, and a wall inscribed with the names of more than 5,000 children who died. Wait, but you have to explain this to audiences in North America. You took it upon yourself to research the names of the dead and memorialize them in art. This would seem like a compassionate and a beautiful gesture. This was one of the things that got you into trouble with Chinese authorities. Why was this such a threat to them?
At first, we are living in a society, the government is trying to cover up any information. And all the information has been either distorted or to even withdrawn by the government, such as victims of the so-called natural disaster. But we all know in 2008, when the earthquake happened, all those school building collapsed, and the building next to it doesn't even collapse. So that means those schools are built, we call it tofu construction. And by asking those names to recognize those life and memorize it, to asking for their name and birthday, I want to bring up a social conscious about how to respect life, how to memorize those lost. And sorry, this train just passing by.
That's okay, no problem.
And And because I was very active in the internet then, I still can use domestic internet by then. So I said, as a citizen, you cannot always blame the government, and you can really take action. Just as a one person, I think we can research and to go to the location, talk to the parents to find out who is missing in the earthquake. And I got a lot of support from the netizens. So we organized volunteers to go to the location, and which is very difficult. Our team has been arrested over 40 times, and then still we managed to find 5,000 names. It's kind of like miracle. And I post all those names on internet, which it become a symbolic gesture to question the authority or put them on trial to see how incapable or to see how morally they are wrong or they are so corrupted
Yes.
in many ways. So that really made them very angry, which caused some kind of they use even physical violence, caused my brain surgery.
Yes.
And later that's one of the reasons they try to calm me down, to put me secretly detain me.
But in the course of that, Weiwei, you've become arguably the most prominent critic of the Chinese regime, certainly within China. Do you think more Chinese artists and intellectuals should be speaking out the way you do?
I think people should speak out about their own rights, and that the rights come with them, and it's going to help everybody else. So, intellectual or not, this is a very essential way to live through, and but in the reality, there's very few people even dare to act up or to really show their what's in their mind.
Well, they won't
And
even.
yeah, because the government can arrest people only because you put one sentence on internet, or one question or one mark which they think is threatened to their authority.
They won't even allow your name to be mentioned, as I understand, Weiwei. And I have to tell you a story, which is that the martial arts movie star Jackie Chan was recently on my show. He was sitting here in studio with me, and we were having a good interview, a good conversation. I mentioned you, and he claimed to not even know your name. Does that surprise you?
That not surprise me. It's obviously he's still playing in your show. He knows me very well. He's very much pro-government actor, and his acted are so extremely towards the us, to on the side of authority, which already become a laughable, humorous actor in the public's view, and
I asked him a few times, are you sure you don't know Ai Weiwei? He said, I've never heard that name. I don't know who that is. Does it bother you when you hear that?
Well, it bothers me when people like him, which is very influential, not to admit the truth and not to still scared of the authority. That really bothers me because he's quite well known, and he doesn't have to be like that.
Do you ever worry your role as an activist is overshadowing your work as an artist, that you become known more for as an activist, and that people will bypass the art along the way?
I think I love art, I love poetry, and I love to act in helping myself and other people. And I wouldn't be so sorry if they don't call me artist. And as long as I still have ability to fight for justice.
You've paid a great personal price for your activism. You've been detained. You've been imprisoned. You had that surgery in your head after you were hit. There are other critics of the regime, like the Nobel Peace Prize winner Liu Xiaobo, for instance, who have been imprisoned for years. Why do you think the regime has allowed you to continue your work even with these restrictions?
Every time when people ask me the same question, I don't really know. I think, I'm a very lawful person, and all what I did is my opinion, and that's a duty for artists to express his true feelings. So if I have to pay some kind of price, I'm ready for it. And I think the authority knows, it's very hard to deal in situation like this.
Meaning that, I mean, but why don't they just, I don't want them to do this, but why don't they just imprison you and take you away like they would with Liu Xiaobo?
I think even the authority, they are not just one person, they are still a system. If they have to do this to me, they have to do this to millions of the people. When I was arrested, which is like kind of earthquake for most people, it shook a lot of people's view, and many of them, because that they escaped, they trying to immigrate to the West, because they lost this kind of trust. So for any kind of authority, even authority like China, can be quite brutal sometimes, but still they don't want to be appeared to be like they're irrational, or so I cannot speak for them, but I hope they be more rational.
Weiwei, you do pay a price for this. What if you never get your passport back and this is how you have to live for the rest of your life? Would you say it has been worth it?
I think it's worth it, and I would never trade my freedom with any kind of other kind of leisure or property. And the freedom is in my mind. And as a human, I struggle and made my effort, and I would take for any kind of consequence. If I don't willing to take the consequence, I think that kind of freedom is too cheap for me. And I still remember when my father was exiled, we are in much difficult situation, and my father would never know this cultural revolution would end. He tells us, when he cleans the toilet, he said, I don't know who cleaned my toilet for past 60 years, and why don't we just think we were born here? And our whole family supported him. I think that's more naturalistic reaction, and I mean realistic reaction.
Before I let you go, I'll ask you one more question. Weiwei, the last time we spoke, you said you believed that China could become a more open society, but only if people would fight for it. Now, you started this conversation today saying that you feel like you personally have a bit more freedom, but you're still concerned for the country. Are you more hopeful or less hopeful than you were a year and a half ago for the future of China?
For future of China, I'm very hopeful. China have to survive and have to make their own true struggle. And for myself, the situation now, I don't really know, because there's so many people get arrested in recent days.
It's always an honor to get to speak to you. I thank you for making the time and for taking so much time with us tonight. Thank you, Ai Weiwei.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.